This is Geometry, Unit 9, Lesson 2, the rest of the notes on trig ratios. Okay, so we are going to be looking at using the trig ratios on the calculator or Desmos. So before we get into that, you have to make sure that they're in the correct mode. We went over it in the last video, but just to remind you to do this every single time. All right, so I want to look at my calculator first of all. Notice up here it says radian. I do not want radian mode, I want degree mode. So to change the mode, remember, go to Mode over here, arrow down to radian, over to degree, so it's highlighted, and press enter. Notice it now says degree up here when you go back to the regular screen. All right, so that's in degree mode. All right, now if you don't have the calculator and you're using Desmos, you got to be really careful when you have this, because Desmos automatically defaults to radian mode and you don't know you're in radian mode. So if you go over to the little wrench over here, graph settings, down here it's highlighted radians. You want to highlight it degrees. Okay, now the easy way to tell that is sine of 30 is always pretty good. All right, if we go down here, hit your function key. All right, notice here function is trig, sine 30. So the sine of 30 is 0.5 or a 1/2. Okay, if you put this in radian mode, the sine of 30 is negative 0.988. So a quick way to check that is to do sine of 30. If it comes out to be 1/2, you are in degree mode, and that's the mode you want to be. It's like having two different units of measure. It's like doing inches and centimeters. Okay, if you don't have in the correct value in the correct mode, it will not give you the correct answer that we're looking for. So your calculator or Desmos should always be in degree mode when you use this. Okay, so just to review, we have an easy way of remembering what ratio to use for what. It's Sohcahtoa. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse from the angle you start with. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse from the angle you start with. And tangent is opposite over adjacent from the angle that you start with. Okay, so if I have in this triangle over here, I want to find the sine of D. All right, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So working from what angle? You're looking from angle D. Angle D is 54. So we are looking at the sine of 54. So if I go opposite, over there is going to be, OG, and the hypotenuse would be DG. That would be your ratio. So if you were looking in the table that I gave you before, you'd have to know those two sides. But if you have your calculator or Desmos, all you have to do, make sure your calculator's in degree mode and Desmos in degree mode, you hit sine 54, press enter. And we'll do this to the nearest 10 thousandths, 4 decimal places. So 0.8090 is your answer. So your ratio for sine of D is 0.8090. So you're saying the sine of 54. All right, the cosine of 54. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So that would be adjacent over hypotenuse here, but we are actually looking for the cosine of 54 degrees working from this angle right here. So we go to our calculator, you put in cos 54, press enter, you get 0.587, I'll round this off, 0.5878. Okay, make sure your calculator's in degree mode. All right, so this is 0.5878. So if you did the ratio of the adjacent side over the hypotenuse at 54 degrees, it will be 0.5878. Okay, your third one is tangent of D. So from this angle D, you want opposite over adjacent. So if you're looking for the tangent of 54, the ratio of opposite to adjacent, we put in our calculator. Tan 54, close your parentheses, you get 1.3763, or 1.3764 is what we ended up with. Whoops. 1.3764. So always pick out the value that you need when you do that. All right, now let's find also sine, cosine, and tangent of angle G. All right, well, think about this. This is a right triangle. So if this is a triangle, there's 180 degrees in this triangle. This one angle's 90, this one's 54. What does that leave for this angle over here? It's going to be 36. Okay, add these three up, they should add up to 180. So when we say the sine of G, we're actually looking for the sine of 36. Okay, so we go, let's do Desmos this time. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is make sure my Desmos is in degree mode. All right, press degree right over here. Okay, and then I go over here, clear this out. If you look at your keyboard down here, you want to go to your functions and then make sure it's on trig. All right, so if we want to do sine of 36, you press sin and then 36. And there's your value, and it should be 0.5878. Okay, all right, let's do the cosine of G. I'll go right down here, cos G. All right, I go to function, cos, and 36. And it's 0.8090. Okay, do you notice something interesting here? Yeah, the sine of one angle is the same as the cosine of the other acute angle. And that makes sense because if this one is adjacent here, it would be opposite to this one, and they're both hypotenuse. So the sine of one is equal to the cosine of the other angle. Those two angles are complementary. All right, now that doesn't work for tangent, unfortunately. The tangent of G would be tangent of 36. All right, so that's going to be, let me grab Desmos again. Tan, hit your function key over here, tan 36. And you get 0.7625. Okay, so when you are doing trig functions, be very careful. Make sure that you know what ratio to use. You know what degree, you should be in degree mode, either in Desmos or on your calculator, and be very careful to round to the correct place. So these were particular ones we did to 4 decimal places, so that's why we did that. But always, always, always know what ratio to use and from what angle you need to be from.